edition of the LUCE Award. And I'm really happy I'm allowed to say a few words before handing over to Dagmar, and I will explain also why, Dagmar. But first I wanted to say that I'm not allowed to announce the winners, but let me just say that if we were not organizing this award, I hope someone else would, because I think we really have two winners that deserve an award. One really made it already to a top position, and luckily she's not that far from Florence, so she could easily arrive here today, even though I think she already showed a very big resilience in her career. The other one is maybe earlier in the career, what we call an emerging talent. But there, I think to get here today, she deserves also a big applause. She's not yet here. We heard she's very, very close, but really she deserves the award only just to get here today. And you will learn about them more in a minute. So why Landwärme? Dagmar is sitting next to me. Well, they are one of these members of the school that really stimulate us. Unbelievably, they always have new ideas. And one of these ideas was to organize this LUCE Award. And I will allow them to say a bit more on why they asked us to do that. But I think I have a little hint of why they reached out to us. Well, probably it's because Florence School of Regulation, and I should say mainly the women in our team, already since 2017 organized something called Lights on Women. Lights on Women started small as a blog, really a bottom-up initiative in the school. It grew into a database, scholarships, and as a result also Landwärme asked us to then organize this award. Maybe just to mention the founders, Ilaria Bellacci, Jessica Debrowski, but many, many more contributed, and as you will see, they are on the program and also here in the audience today. The last thing to mention, I think I did a bit of my homework here this morning. I don't know if everybody knows, like, why this day was picked. Somebody told me it is because it is the International Day of Light. Luce in Italian, light, right? So I was curious because I had never heard about the International Day of Light. I looked it up, it actually exists. It was an initiative of UNESCO since 2018. Maybe that's why we do not yet know it. And I also checked the website of UNESCO, and we have the Director General that actually published a press release today. So maybe next year we should invite her to come over, because it's Audrey Azoulay who actually wrote a really nice speech. And I'm not going to read it out to you. You can read it afterwards. We will probably also tweet it. But basically, she reminds us that light, technologies of light and science really plays an important role in sustainability, in sustainable development. Because if there is no light, you know, there is not even the possibility to read and to learn. But they also remind us that, for instance, the laser was operational for the first time on the 16th of May. So maybe that's one of the reasons that this day was actually chosen. Turns out that some gentleman called Theodore Mayman fired the first laser on 16th of May, 1960 in his lab. I don't know if he still is alive or what happened to the lab, but we are very grateful to him for that technology. So that's it. Dagmar, please tell us a bit more on how you came to bring us this really nice idea.
Yes, thank you very much. Hello, everyone, and also hello, everyone at home. I'm Dagmar Düring. I'm the head of strategy and communications at Landwärme, and I'm also a representative or an ambassador for the Energy Base project. So I'm very thrilled to be here today, both in my position as an ambassador for the Energy Base project and also as a representative of Landwärme, who you already mentioned it is a proud partner or initiator of this LUCE Award. And yeah, there's a lot that I can tell about how this came to light, which pun intended. So I mean, like as a company that is deeply committed to promoting gender equality, just as sustainability on so many levels, we are very honored to be here today and to honor two amazing women for their incredible achievement for sustainability and toward a greener planet, and yeah, for their positive impact on our planet. And before I get more into detail how everything came up, I want to say thank you to the Florence School of Regulation and of course to the entire team. I want to mention some names, you did that already, but Ilaria, Nena, Christine, Elena, Marcia, and the entire team. I can't name everyone, that would be too much for the speech, but everyone who put in tremendous effort to make this award come to life, thank you. I think it's very remarkable especially for this short period of time that we had between the pitch of the idea and the ceremony today. I think that's amazing. So thank you very much for all that effort. And I also want to say thank you to our dedicated team back at home, especially to name another Elena. There's a lot of Elenas in this project. And Alex for the design. And of course, Zoltan, our CEO, for his incredible support making this project possible and for his unwavering dedication to equality for all. I'm very, very lucky and thankful to have him as a CEO, and we all are. But above all, a big thank you, and I'm gonna have to see that I don't start crying. But a big thank you goes out to my colleague Gabor, who's sitting right here, who is actually the visionary behind the idea of the award today. Gabor has been a passionate advocate for gender equality as well as LGBTQ+ rights for years. And he has driven forward our corporate social impact at Landwärme for years. And if it hadn't been for him, his idea and his drive, we wouldn't be here today. And where did the LUCE, there will be more to go. There will be more opportunities to applaud. Actually, where did the LUCE idea come from? He told me that it was actually after a sunny vacation on Sardinia last October, which is very fitting. He told me he really felt the uplifting effect the light and sunshine had on him. And especially he felt that after the dark periods of COVID lockdown. And initially he was just thinking about the concept of light and how even the smallest spark can change everything. And he realized we need more of that. We need more brightness in our lives, and we need to put more spotlight on the positive things. And he immediately thought of the Lights on Women project, and he was thinking how we could together develop this idea further. And then it struck him that actually, you mentioned it also, the Italian word luce, light, is also feminine. So that was perfect. And that's actually how the idea of the LUCE Award was born. He pitched it to our CEO. He was a fan immediately. And I think it was within a week or so that you guys had put up a video call. And well, that's that. So the story began with the spark of an idea, and it turned into this guiding lighthouse that is shining light on talented women. And I think that is very important. What we need to do is to make extraordinary women and their accomplishments visible. And that is what our little lighthouse here today does. And now you might wonder, why am I talking if it was Gabor's idea? Well, I'm a woman. So it's as simple as that. I am, however, very, very lucky to know him as a colleague. He is the perfect example of setting a spark, of supporting your coworkers, and especially of supporting the women on our team. He is actually the one who suggested me as an ambassador for the energy-based project. And he is also the one who is constantly telling me to believe in my own light. And I think, now come the tears, there is so much that we can learn from him. And for that, I am very grateful. And I think the entire team is very grateful, which is why we have prepared a little thank you. Nothing yet. Thank you so much. I also want to say a few words to Landwärme, that I am very honored to be a representative of Landwärme. Landwärme is a company who not only values diversity, but actively promotes it in so many ways. As of this April, men and women both have equal representation in our management team, which we're very proud of. And in 2021, we established a diversity task force that is working with devotion to educate about systematic inequalities. We discuss how sexism can manifest in the subtlety of the words we choose. We also explore ways to improve our recruitment processes to inclusively appeal to everyone. And these are just a few examples of what we're working on. At the same time, we're obviously aware that there is so much more that we can do, and we're trying our best. And I believe that is very important. We can't change the world, not today, and not, well, not in the tiniest bit, I suppose, but we can start with the little things. We can start with a few sparks that can lead to big things. And a few examples are: tell your colleague when she does a great job. Share with your boss the amazing idea your colleague had. And mention her name in a room full of opportunities. I think that's the small things that we can do. Or actually, what we can also do is nominate her for next year's LUCE Awards. I think all of us that we're here today, we have the power to make a significant change, and we can lead the way. So let's do that. So we're starting by celebrating the contributions of two trailblazing women today, who both, with their tremendous dedication, are making a real difference. Two very unique biographies, but equally committed to the task. The women we honor today are driving the transition to a cleaner and more sustainable energy system, and they're doing an amazing job. And now, I'm almost at the end. To all nominees, finalists, and winners, congratulations and thank you. Each of you has done an amazing job. You are an inspiration. You remind us that each and every one of us can do something to make the world a better place in so many ways. Let us all be a guiding star for all the girls and women out there. Let us serve as a compass for the industry, providing empowerment and a platform for women. And actually, every person, no matter their gender or sexual orientation. Let us make them visible and let us make them shine. Let us all be La Luce. Thank you.
Okay, I think now we're all excited to see the winners of the award, but we have to wait for another hour because we have three very impressive women that come on stage before that. Let me first introduce myself maybe. My name is Valerie Reif. I'm a research associate at the Florence School of Regulation, and I really have the honor to moderate this panel today with these three impressive and amazing women. And already in the preparation, I have learned so much, so I'm very excited to hear their interventions. The topic of the panel is energy transition and sustainable development, leaving no woman behind. And I just took the liberty to create one slide, if I can show it. Elena, can you press the button? To give a bit of context to this panel. So in 2015, the United Nations adopted the Sustainable Development Goals, and among them, for example, gender equality, affordable and clean energy, sustainable cities and communities, and also climate action. In the same year, the Paris Agreement was adopted, and I think we all know very well the targets that were agreed upon. And the EU is, of course, a party to that Paris Agreement, and as such has adopted a long-term strategy. And at the heart of that long-term strategy is the EU Green Deal. And the Green Deal is a growth strategy for Europe, and it has three main pillars. It builds on the target of no net emissions of greenhouse gases by 2050, also the pillar of economic growth decoupled from resource use, and that nobody and no place should be left behind. Of course, this energy transition will have a lot of benefits and advantages that will probably materialize, let's say, more in the mid to long term, while in the short term, there are also some costs that need to be allocated and that need to be shared. And this is where this just transition mechanism comes in, which is not only a funding scheme, but there is also a governance framework related to it and a just transition platform for collaboration. And then the last thing to say is that, of course, the just energy transition is not only a European endeavor, but it's really a global challenge, let's say, and a global target that we all need to reach, global south, global north, in a common effort. And this is where it comes back, because the global just transition will, of course, also advance the Sustainable Development Goals. Who is in the middle of that? All of us, men, children, and women. And this is what we are here to discuss today with these three amazing women. So now, finally, I get to introduce them. We have Anna Sobczak at the very left of mine. She's currently a researcher at the FSR and is working on the just and clean energy transition, but she's also seconded from the European Commission, where she's a policy officer for coal regions in this just energy transition. Then we have Marie Hyland here to my left. She's an economist and a research officer at Eurofound, which is the European Foundation for the Improvement of Living and Working Conditions. And before that, she was an economist at the World Bank and also worked as a researcher for a long time. And then we have Carol Ofafa, who has so many hats that I can only get this introduction wrong, right? So I will stick to the hard facts. You are an electrical and electronics engineer. You're a researcher at the African School of Regulation. And you're also the founder of eSafiri, which is a company that advances sustainable transport in Kenya and maybe even beyond that. But I think we will hear a lot about this. Okay, enough from me. So now we will hear from these women. All of you have a presentation prepared. We will start with Anna. Anna, you have 8 minutes. Then we will go to Marie and then to Carol. And after that, we will have time for a discussion. And I would really encourage all of you to note down your questions while we hear these presentations, because I also want to include you in the discussion. And we will try to do some integrated discussion. I will tell you later how that will go. So Anna, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Valerie. I'm delighted to be here and on this first meeting, first award, and I really hope there will be many more to come with the light starting as we are spreading the light across Europe and also across the world together with the green transition and clean energy transition. And in fact, my presentation today will be about gender equality, empowerment and justice in the green energy transition in the framework of EU Green Deal, which is Europe's growth strategy. And here, let me start by the words of our president of the European Commission. So as you know, it's the first woman, the president of the European Commission. And we also, energy has a female side to it, the energy policy, because we have the first female commissioner for energy, Kadri Simpson, and also the first director general, Dite Juul Jorgensen. So I think it's quite a strong women empowerment at the EU top levels. And here, when the EU Green Deal was launched, what our president said, she indeed put the emphasis on people. And people is the equality. It's also working together, cooperating together. So it has all those principles that we talk today about. It's about the justice, it's about equality, it's about equity, it's about fairness, and leaving no one behind. So our leitmotif indeed of a EU Green Deal. So I would like to let me emphasize this, because this is something that guides us through all the European policies that we say, and especially increasingly in the energy policy. So when we look at the Europe Growth Strategy, EU Green Deal, and Valerie already brilliantly summarized the main points, but I still let me please draw your attention to the fact that it is very much forward-looking strategy. It's about improving the quality of life of current and future generations, so of our children, also of our grandchildren. And many of us here are parents as well. So it's really something very close to our hearts, that we want to make it right and just for them and make the world a better place. So that's why the whole EU Green Deal, in fact, it's a roadmap with concrete actions for collective recovery at the same time, but also for the common future. And here at the heart of it, so at the center, is the concept of a just transition. And that's indeed what Valerie, introducing our session, mentioned. So it's about this inclusive aspects, a socio-economic dimension of a clean energy transition towards climate neutrality, to make sure that when we move away from fossil fuels, when we decarbonize our economy, that we leave no one behind, that we also take care of the communities which are very heavily dependent on fossil fuels, and we make sure that there are jobs and growth in those communities. So that's again, the justice, the equity and fairness is very strong there. And another element which is crucial, that we Europeans, EU, we want to lead as an example. We want to be global leader, and you can already see it, in fact, in this global just transition. So with all different just energy transition investment plans, which were put forward at different consecutive meetings of whether it's COP26, COP27, G20 as well, that we already have just energy transition partnerships with South Africa and with Indonesia, for instance. Another aspect specifically here zooming on the equality that our president put forward, it's this, for the first time we have in this commission the gender equality strategy. So striving for the union of equality. And here, may I please also draw your attention what our president here highlighted, that it's important to also use, to tap in the full potential that we use of our talent and diversity. So equality is indeed about also diversity, to tapping into diversity, to making sure that we're using not only half of the population and half of the ideas and half of the energy, again, pun intended. This is not enough. We need to use it all. And this is also when you can have all the synergies and we can really benefit, and we can say that this is indeed the justice for all. So what are the concrete elements on the gender equality? And let me just, as all the policymakers, we always have to put some statistics and some numbers to sound reliable. So that's why I allowed myself to also show you what are the key elements that you can see of the gender equality. So some different initiatives which are already in place, but also how much potential there is in investing in women and girls in the EU and around the world to promote the gender equality. And also, in other terms, what do we mean in this strategy? What do we mean by gender equality, and what are the main components? So when you look at it, you see that one of the key areas here, and it's our sector, is explicitly mentioned that there are specific needs, challenges, and opportunities in this different sectors, such as energy, that will be addressed within the Commission's gender mainstreaming actions. And here it's a little teaser, what I'm going to speak to you, because we at the DG Energy, and as I was introduced, indeed, I'm also a policy coordinator and civil servant of European Commission of DG Energy. We put forward together, my colleagues indeed put forward together a platform, equality platform for the energy sector, which had already, I think, three meetings. The last one was in April. And it's a forum where we discuss equality-related issues, where we facilitate exchange of experiences and highlight good practices. So what about this equality platform? What are also the main objective of this? We want to see it as an accelerator for a concrete actions to achieve gender equality. And I can tell you that all the signatories of the Declaration on Equal Opportunities for All in the energy sector are very much committed to put forward certain proposals, concrete proposals to achieving the gender equality, and they are also implementing them. So in this equality platform, we have various stakeholders who are involved in the energy sector, who together are committed towards concrete actions. And so far, I just checked yesterday, there are 25 signatories, and I hope you can find your own institutions and organizations who signed a declaration on the equal opportunities for all in energy sector. And I'm very proud to see and very happy to see number 15. I think to make it interesting, we could have put it as number 16 to link it with today's date, because there is Florence School of Regulation as one of the signatories. And here it's very interesting quotation that I took from declaration, which I absolutely love, that diversity and inclusion are key to ensure equality in business, politics, and society. And the energy sector is no exception. So here, what's next? And I really hope I still have 1 more minute, my dear moderator. Thank you very much. Because you're wondering, since we mentioned it's a forward-looking strategy. So, okay, there is this platform, there is a strategy, but what can we concretely do? And here it's the call to all of you. As you know, this year, all the member states are required to update the national energy and climate plans, which are the 10-year strategies for the energy and climate policies. And here, if you really consider, and I hope all of you do consider the importance of equality, fairness, also diversity, gender equality as important part of the energy and climate policies, please engage. Please provide also your input, because one of the principles and good practices updating national energy and climate plans is indeed engaging with wide and inclusive consultation with civil society, local authorities, social partners, sectoral stakeholders early in the process. So here you can see the link to the national energy and climate plan. So this is really crucial. This is concrete action that you can do for your country and also for Europe as a whole, and for all the women as well. So give the light in the national energy and climate plans. And in concrete terms, again, there is a section dedicated to the fair transition policies and measures for updated national energy and climate plans. And this was published in a guidelines last December, how to prepare this national energy climate plans. I'm aware that most of the countries already submitted it, and the European Commission will be now providing the feedback. So it's also ongoing process. So please also make sure that you also contribute to give more visibility, to give more light to the issues which are important and close to our heart. And the last but not least, I would like to give you also an example of a concrete project, which is EU-funded project for transforming gender interrelations of power and inequalities for just energy system. It's a Horizon Europe funded project, which we're very happy to have here. The members of the project, also the members of consortium who launched this project on the International Women's Day in Rome. I had the pleasure to be, and it's the leader. So if you have some questions to Serena, you're more than welcome to ask. And you can see also all the consortium members who are represented. So I warmly invite you also to look at this project, because I'm really looking forward to policy recommendations of Genesis for transforming gender interrelations of power inequalities in just energy systems. And with this call, I will finish my presentation and give the floor now to Marie. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Anna, for your very inspiring presentation. We will now move to Marie, because your last slide was a very nice bridge, because this Genesis project really applies a gender lens, let's say, to the topic of the energy transition. And also Marie will do that in talking about the gender aspect of energy poverty. Please, Marie.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for having me here today. It's an absolute pleasure to be here to represent Eurofund. So as Valerie said in her introduction, I work for the European Foundation for the Improvement of Living and Working Conditions. And one of the mandates of Eurofound is to monitor how trends and policies impact the living conditions of people living and working in Europe. And in this regard, the green transition has very important implications in terms of improving people's living conditions, as Valerie said, in the medium to long term. But in the short term, it can also be associated with significant costs. And if these costs aren't appropriately analyzed with policy measures to adjust for them adopted, it can lead to an increase in inequality in income and living condition across Europe. Okay, so what I want to present first of all is an overview of kind of a snapshot of how households might be struggling with their utility bills across Europe. So the data shows that over time, there's been a general decline in the percentage of households that have been going into arrears in the utility bills. So it's kind of showing progress over the past decade or so. Although data from 2019 has showed that in many member states, this statistic has started to creep back upwards again, which is, I guess, unsurprising considering the challenging economic conditions that people have been living through. But what I think is really interesting in this graph is that you can see an enormous heterogeneity across member states in the degree to which households end up in arrears in their utility bills. So this ranges from a high of, I think it's 26% in Greece to a low of fewer than 1% of households in the Netherlands. What's also really interesting is that within member states, certain groups of people are much more likely to end up in arrears in their utility bills. So for example, we see here that single people with dependent children are far more likely, sometimes as much as 4 times more likely than the national average to end up going into arrears in their utility bills. So this shows how households can struggle, and particularly the most vulnerable households can struggle with rising energy prices. Back in April of 2020, the Eurofound launched a new initiative, which was our e-survey that was aimed to monitor trends in working and living conditions over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic. To date, 5 rounds of data collection have been completed, and the 6th survey wave is actually currently in the field. So we've adapted this kind of quite agile tool in order to continue to monitor emerging and evolving challenges to working and living conditions in Europe. One of my colleagues at Eurofound, Garan Sangra, has done really great work in trying to see how this data can be used to look into the gendered aspects of gender aspects of energy poverty and how this can interact with household type. So what her research has shown is that energy poverty is a multidimensional issue that's driven by a wide range of factors. So some factors that are really significant and consistent predictors of energy poverty are things like the quality of the household, is probably the quality of the house, of the home, the building structure, the choice of energy suppliers available. Other things that are more dependent on the kind of socio-demographics, such as the education level, income, the age of the person, and then also the number of people within the household are significant drivers of energy poverty. But what the research also shows is that above and beyond all these factors, there are 2 groups that actually stand out as being more likely than others to end up in energy poverty. And those are men living alone and single mothers. So it's important to take into consideration these particular groups when thinking about energy policy, and particularly in terms of single mothers, because households with children can be particularly vulnerable to various implications of energy poverty. The European Parliament has done research that's shown that there's kind of 5 broad outcomes that are consistently associated with energy poverty. Those are deteriorations in physical health, in mental health, social stigma, and also feelings of disconnection, as well as increased levels of indebtedness at the household. And our research confirms that across the board, we see these outcomes are significantly associated with being in energy poverty. But what we also find is that energy poverty can be an additional vulnerability for certain already vulnerable households. So, for example, we can see that women who are living alone may already be more likely to feel disconnected from society. Women living alone who are in energy poverty, this further pushes them into a feeling of disconnection. And likewise, in terms of social stigma for families with children. So energy poverty is a real and serious concern for everyone, but in particular for those that are already vulnerable. Data from the European Union Survey of Income and Living Conditions shines actually light on other ways in which there are kind of important gender implications associated with rising energy prices. So what their data shows is actually that even after controlling for income, education, as well as country and time factors, that women are more likely to struggle to heat their homes than men, and they're less likely to go into arrears in their utility bills. And that these two stylized facts are even more true for older women who are more likely to struggle to heat their homes and even less likely to go into arrears in their utility bills. And what's important to think about here is what kind of behaviors might be going on at the household level that kind of are allowing people to compensate for this reduced ability to heat their homes while avoiding going into arrears in the utility bills. Research from the United States has shown that households on low income engage in a range of risky strategies to avoid going into arrears in the utility bills in order to avoid disconnection. So for example, there's research has shown that households are more likely to engage in things like burning rubbish for heat sources. They're more likely to forego expenditure on necessary items such as food and medicine. They're more likely to take on unsustainable borrowing methods, so just payday loans. And this is all in order to avoid going into arrears and therefore being disconnected from their utility bills. So it's really important to think about some of these kind of compensating behaviors that may be happening that might not be detected, but that have serious implications for people's living conditions. Housing is also very interesting as it has a really important role to play in terms of the just transition. So research from some of my other colleagues at Eurofound has actually shown that good quality housing can actually delay a person's need for long-term care. So, you know, being in a better quality home allows you to live in your own home in good health for longer. And this has really important implications for women because women are disproportionately consumers of long-term healthcare because they live longer. And also women are more likely to be informal carers for elderly family members. So improving the quality of the housing stock can help the health of older women and also can enable younger women to participate and remain engaged in the labor force. Public transport is also an important consideration when we think about energy and gender implications. So what this graph shows is that greenhouse gas emissions from public transport are significant. I think they account for about a quarter of the total greenhouse gas emissions in Europe, and also that they haven't seen the same kind of gradual decline in emissions that we've seen in other sectors. So it's obviously important, important space for policy interventions in this regard. Investments in public transport can really help Europe move towards the green transition, and it's a much more sustainable way than in terms of achieving a just transition than, for example, other policies that have been used in the recent past, such as subsidizing fossil fuels for private transport. It's also very important because people on low incomes are more likely to use public transport, and they're also more sensitive to changes in its cost. Women also, because they have in general lower rates of car ownership, are more likely to use public transport in order to engage in employment and education opportunities. So there's very important gender implications here also. So across the EU, there are a variety of supports that have been made available. So data from Eurofound's EU Policy Watch counted that between April and September of 2022, there was 115 policies initiated in order to cushion households from the impact of rising energy prices. While most of these households, or pardon me, how most of these policies targeted all households, those that were targeted at specific groups, most often targeted families, people on low incomes, or those that were already in receipt of social welfare benefits. But what's perhaps missing in this area, and it's important kind of research question, research gap to fill, is a thorough analysis of the effectiveness of these policies in terms of at moving us towards a just green transition. So how are they achieving the goals of, you know, leaving no one behind and ensuring that inequality is not exacerbated, and also how sustainable are they? So I think this is an important area for future research. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marie. And I think there were also a lot of interesting points raised that we can later come back to in the discussion. But before that, you also talked about transport, which is, again, a nice bridge to Carol, because she will talk about her transport startup that she founded and the impacts that it had on the life of at least 50 women that I saw in your slides, but I think more, right? So please go ahead.
Please forgive me, I'm battling a cold. So I'd like to start by saying that in 2022, about 27 million registered motorcycles in Africa. Excuse me, up from 5 million in 2010. Now, 40% of, sorry. Oh, this is really bad. Thank you. Second, please. Yes, I think it should be better. Now, 40% of carbon emissions in Africa come from the transport industry. This means that for countries such as Kenya, where we have 1.5 million registered motorcycles, which are all ICE, internal combustion engines, 46% of carbon emissions in Kenya are from this industry. Now, women and children suffer a heavier burden when it comes to lack of access to affordable, clean, and reliable energy, but more so as well in the transport industry. Now, today I want to share a story with you about a woman-founded, woman-led startup that is doing something about this in the transport industry in Kenya. My name is Carol Ofafa. I'm a researcher at the African School of Regulation, and I'm grateful for being invited to speak at this event and just share the story of Isafi Charging Limited. Isafi is a startup in Nairobi, Kenya, a green tech e-mobility startup, and their mission is to drive Africa's transition to sustainable transport. Now, Safiri is a Swahili word for travel, and Safi is a Swahili word for clean. So I think the name Isafi, sorry, Isafi. Wow, I'm struggling. Sorry. So the name Isafi encompasses both clean transport. You'll have to work with me on this one. So Isafi is developing reliable, accessible, and affordable charging solutions for electric bicycles and motorcycles for riders in Kenya to increase adoption of e-mobility for the bottom of the pyramid commercial users in an effort to transform lives by reducing the cost of fuel, to decrease the charging costs. These are energy-related costs, and eventually reducing carbon emissions in the transport sector. Now, Isafi is 67% women-led, where we have women in decision-making capabilities. We have an engineering team that is led by a woman. We have the founding team led by myself and another co-founder who is the COO of the company. And we work with women towards the transition to clean and affordable energy, and more so in the transport sector. So in Isafi's business model, we realized that in order to reduce the cost of energy for charging infrastructure for most of our riders who are low-income, bottom of the pyramid riders, we had to incorporate renewable energy. And because most of the areas we work in are rural, we realized there's an abundance of solar energy, there's an abundance of wind, and we could use these resources that are locally available to transition more of the riders we work with to electric mobility. Now, we do have thank you. Now we do have what we call battery swapping stations, as well as charging points. We work with women and small business owners to train them into swapping batteries in our battery swapping points. This becomes an extra source of revenue for them. So aside from using solar, we're integrating women into the ecosystem by training them on electric mobility, its advantages, and how they can make extra revenue from these activities. So the challenges that we have faced in transitioning to electric mobility have been as follows: lack of public charging infrastructure, because riders do not trust what they cannot see. If you do not have charging infrastructure, most riders will not transition to electric bikes. They will not have a place to charge their bikes. Most of the riders we work with are called border riders and delivery riders. They rarely have electricity at home. Therefore, having access to charging infrastructure is one reason that could convince riders to transition. We also have speed of service. Most of our riders are used to going into a petrol station and, in 6 minutes or less, you're out. We had to make sure that our business model caters to this need. Now, the use of solar PV, as I initially mentioned, has helped us to leverage abundance of renewable sources and also to reduce the cost of charging. We have digital charging points which are interoperable with different with different batteries from different EV assemblers. Now, so far we are in, sorry. Thank you for being patient with me. This is not easy, and I am doing my best to make sure that I tell their story, because I know some of them are watching. But I hope we can get through the presentation and the story will be told. So far, we've trained 50 women who have small businesses in the battery charging, battery swapping operations. We have mapped battery swapping locations, and we have LOIs with companies that are interested in working with us. But this is not all. We have identified a location near Lake Victoria where we have women who are fish vendors who are looking for sustainable models for cold storage. They're looking for energy access, but they're also looking for transport for their fish from their vending locations to other markets or to clients. We are working with these women in this project called Sunrun. We are providing a solar charging hub, and as we speak now, 800 women are getting into the training program before the end of the year. So this is good news. We will have different productive uses that are anchored around the Sustainable Mobility Project. So we have partnerships with women organizations, with women-led organizations. One such organization is Nyanam Widows Rising. So Nyanam Widows Rising is helping widows in Kenya to come up with revenue-generating activities to support themselves, because predominantly most African homes are very patriarchal. And when your husband dies, culture sometimes forces women to go into extreme poverty because most of the families are headed by men. So Nyanam Widows Rising is helping women come up with ideas around within sustainable energy to generate revenue, take care of their children, take care of their homes. So we partnered with them to offer training for battery swapping, to offer training in cold storage using our solar PV charging hub that we're now looking at as an anchor. So the sustainable mobility being an anchor for other productive uses where women can generate revenue around this ecosystem. So thank you so much. And for more information on for more information on ISAFI, we have our contact information and the website, which has more stories about these women that we work with. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. I think we will give you some minutes to recover. I think thank you all for your presentations. I think we have nicely seen the different angles from which or that we need to consider when we discuss also the gender aspect of the energy transition. And I think another aspect that it has shown is that there is this complementarity of top-down and bottom-up effort that needs to be made, both institutionally, but then also bottom-up from really, let's say, on-the-ground initiatives. Now, we have 25 to 30 minutes for a discussion. And as I said before, I would really like this to be an open discussion, both among the panelists, but also with the audience that is on site. So how we usually do it in Florence is if you want to intervene, then you put up your name tag and I can give you the floor. And to have a bit of structure, the proposal that I'm making is to structure the discussion in 3 topics. And I also have prepared some questions to kick it off. So there are some questions on, let's say, the institutional, legal, regulatory framework. Then I also have some questions on the research and innovation part, because also Carol is really an innovator, I would say, of the first level, and then also related to skills. So these are basically the 3 blocks where you can intervene. I think since Carol just is taking a break, maybe we can indeed start with the legal, regulatory, institutional frame, and in that case, a bit EU-centered, let's say. And let me ask a first question to Marie, because you were really talking about the energy poverty aspect, let's say, and your last slide showed that different member states also adopted different measures, and that there's maybe this heterogeneity of measures. Is that also related to a lack of the definition of energy poverty? And would you have a proposal or, I don't know, some thoughts on how this could be defined in order maybe also subsequently to harmonize the measures to address it?
Thank you, Valerie. Yeah, that's a great question. And indeed, that is really one of the challenges when you're studying energy poverty at an EU level, the fact that there is no single definition. Certain member states have adopted definitions, others don't have one at all. I think, and as a result, when researchers talk about energy poverty, they use different ways of looking at it. There's also the concept of energy insecurity, so which is, you know, a related concept. And I think that in that regard, it would be extremely helpful to have a definition that was agreed upon, because I think in general, you know, when you have a metric, it's much easier to target. And in terms of the range of policies that have been made available, yeah, some of those really have been very I'm not sure how to say it, but like very broad, without really any particular targeting on the type of energy used. In several instances, they may lead to an increase in consumption of fossil fuels. So I think it would be really helpful to have a concept of energy policy, and then also how that can be, or energy poverty, and how that can be linked also to sustainability from an environmental as well as economic perspective.
And I think in your project, you're not yet at the stage of giving recommendations, but are you also thinking about this being one of the recommendations to really adopt a definition of energy poverty, or does that not make sense maybe even at the EU level, because the conditions are also different in the member states?
Yeah, I think that's really the challenge, that different member states, you know, depending on their energy mix, their level of interconnection with other member states, they, you know, depending on the housing quality, the climate that they you know experience, it's really, really difficult. And I think that I don't think that we're at the stage yet of having a proposal for a definition that's EU wide.
Great. Thank you, Marie. I also have 2 questions to Anna. Anna, in this equality platform, I think maybe I missed it, but I think you did not share with us how we can participate. Is there also room for us as citizens to participate, or is it more the level of organization, institutions that can participate? And the second one is maybe a more general question, because you raised really a number of EU initiatives and funds that are being made available to support also gender equality in the energy transition. And I'm wondering how you can, because you said that we have to make sure that we also, let's say, improve the life of future generations. So how can you make sure that these funds and initiatives are effective, that they reach their target audience, and maybe even that the money arrives where it should arrive in the end?
Thank you very much, Valerie. Of excellent questions. And I also would like to, before I answer the question, I said that I was really impressed with Marie and Carol's presentation. I actually learned so much. So here also as a woman, I would like to write the support to my co-panelists because they were really impressive presentations on the importance of energy poverty. They also what's the support of the startups in Kenya. So to answer the two questions that you did, so one about the participation in the initiatives, and indeed whether the citizens can participate. So our initiatives, the local initiatives, they're very much community citizens led. And the big focus is indeed on listening what are the concrete needs of the citizens. And then consecutively providing the solutions to the needs and the challenges that arise. So the whole idea of, let's say, the pilot project that we had initially before even EU Green Deal was launched, which was the Platform Initiative for Coal Regions in Transition. It was very much bottom up. It was a multi-stakeholder dialogue. So around the one table, you had the trade unions, you had the climate activists, the regional authorities, businesses, research, academia, and all together, they were exchanging their views and they were saying, so we have this problem, this issue, what can we do together to address it? Are there any solutions? So it was kind of a brainstorming, but also it was very empowering, because it was also with the respect towards one another. Of course, each of the groups and since had a different perspective, and for coal miners, it was always important to maintain their jobs and support their families. The climate activists said we have to make sure that we reach climate neutrality as fast as possible. We stop. So here, even with quite a contradicting, you may say, with the views, you can still, when you talk, when you enter into dialogue and jointly try to find a solution, it is possible, as our initiative has proved and is proving, because they were the basis for now territorial just transition plans that allow into tapping onto this just transition mechanism, which is the first concrete money for a just transition, to address just transition both in coal regions, but also, and this is very important, in carbon intensive regions when energy intensive industries are located, such as steel, aluminium, chemical, fertilizers, plastics, because they are going through a huge, big transformation as well, and they are decarbonizing. So that's a big challenge for them. So I think it's important to keep it in mind. And to answer your second questions, how to ensure that those initiatives, those funds are effective. That's like a €1 billion question. I think it's important to always be aware and know what are the current circumstances, because the circumstances change. And you need the flexibility to adapt to those changing circumstances. And I think at the EU level, that's why we have a long-term perspective and long-term measures, and we have a short-term measures. And we also have a combination of different instruments, initiatives, policies. It's kind of like you have a different solutions to a different problem, so different scenarios. And I think you're adapting your solution to the current circumstances and always trying to make it tailor-made to the needs. So that's why this listening, communication, and updating, as we are also now updating national energy climate plans, exactly for the same reason, because the circumstances change. So it's important to kind of have the touch with the reality and be aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Carol, are you with us, because I would also have a question for you, because we're in a School of Regulation, right? And you're also working for African School of Regulation. So on the topic of regulation, you said that this lack of public charging infrastructure and also in the end a lack of interoperability, as I understand, were problems that you were facing, and you were addressing them by developing market-ready commercial solutions. So can you elaborate a bit on how this maybe lack of regulation of public infrastructure has also affected your business, maybe positive, but also negative?
Yes, I think in the beginning, this was looked at as a positive for any innovative industry that's just groundbreaking, something that is new. A lack of regulation lets people innovate. It's a fantastic environment for engineers, but it's not a good climate for business. And what you realize is lack of regulation equals lack of investment. Most investors will not be attracted to an environment that is up in the air, where there's no consistent or at least expected returns on the investment. Now, without regulation, you will find that the initial investment costs are higher. There's also a chance of technology being obsolete once regulation catches up with you. And therefore, I think regulation and standardization of certain elements of sustainable mobility, especially in Africa, will drive that transition. So more and more people will be able to get access to these solutions and be able to get access to public charging infrastructure readily available for everyone if those policies and those standardization or regulatory frameworks are put in place in time. So I think that regulation can go hand in hand with innovation, in that we would still have certain models that would have to be contextually viable for Africa that will require innovation. But there are some regulatory frameworks that are global that could be adopted and could add value to the African market.
Thank you. I'm looking in the room if there is maybe an intervention on the part of the audience, but I think not yet. Great, because that you're already mentioning a bit this innovation aspect, and this is actually, maybe somebody's deciding. Yes, Marina, please come in.
First things first, sorry for not following the rules. I try to understand. And thank you so much for this initiative for a young researcher on gender topics. Is something so precious, is so rare. So thank you so much. And actually, my question is for all panelists, unfortunately. And it's, what do you think can be the role of gender impact assessment for the implementation of the gender focus? For Mary, for example, on the energy issue, on the transportation, on the Green Deal. You talked about Anna, about consultation, but do you think that gender impact assessment could be a powerful tool also for implement gender issue in this kind of topics? But my question is for all panelists, if you can. Thank you so much.
When I hear impact assessment, I kind of feel that it's definitely towards me, the question directed. Of course, we are always in favor, if I can say we here, if I can wear my commission hat for a moment. So the European Commission is always very much in favor of all the impact assessment. And why we have all those different tools, such as you mentioned, public consultations, because indeed European Commission doesn't know it all. The civil servants, people working there, not. They need to find out the information, and such tools and instruments as impact assessment, as public consultation also allows us to see from different perspective the issue, and also to see what we can do to improve, to make it better. So I personally like having diversified portfolio of different tools and instruments that you use depending on the situation. So if it helps to make it better, why not? Let's go for it. And that's one of the, indeed, what you mentioned, it's really very a very useful tool that it's being used and has been used for many, many years. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Unless the other two panelists want to intervene, I would move to the topic of innovation, which was also already mentioned by Carol. And I have a question to you, because you train women. You are an innovator yourself, but you also train women to be innovators, women that maybe originally have not so much, did not. Okay, let's say you're an innovator, you train women to be innovators. For example, in running these swapping points next to their grocery shops, right? Which is something very different. So which strategies do you employ to find these women that are willing to do that? And how do you keep them also? How do you convince them of your idea and of the fact that it will also lead to results and maybe also to monetary benefit in the end?
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a very good question. I think, first of all, finding the women hasn't been a challenge because women are there. They are interested in making their lives better. They are keen on making sure that, you know, they provide livelihoods for their children, take care of their households, take care of themselves. So the idea is to provide the right skills so that they feel that they are, in fact, well equipped to take place in an innovative endeavor or to take place in a business model that they are not familiar with. So what we've done is we provide training workshops for those who sign up to join us. We, of course, deploy people to go into the field, talk to women, and then invite them for training workshops. Now, we run these training workshops with the help of manufacturers, research institutions. So one such partner that we have is the Glasgow Caledonian University, and they offer technical support as well for the engineering teams that are on the ground that I told you for ISAFRI is women-led. And then this knowledge is transferred downwards through these training workshops that we offer in the smaller villages or the smaller towns that we visit. So for us to be able to set up the ecosystem, we will require the capacity. So we have to, of course, transfer the knowledge and disseminate the knowledge to the people we're looking to work with, the people who are willing to set up the swapping operations and, you know, have that training. So it works in a way that first you approach the community, and then you have to have something to offer, right? You have to provide the training and the skills, and then show in that training, show the capacity and show that they can actually make revenue from this operations. Yeah.
And I guess you sometimes also face some obstacles. So one aspect is the women that you're training, the women that you're getting into from the outside, but the other aspect is your team. How do you keep your team motivated in the face of these challenges that naturally also come when you run a business?
Yeah, I think that's one of the harder things. It's being able to get the correct talent in the team and keep it. Also because to keep good talent, you need a lot of money. You need to hire the best people. You need to convince the best people that your vision is worth pursuing. I think we've of course started off just 3 of us. We were a team of 3 in the beginning. Now we've grown to 10, and we are hoping to grow even more. The idea for me is to, first of all, make sure that we understand that there are institutions, learning institutions that are willing to provide mentorship for women who are looking to work with us. So we have worked with local universities. We've interviewed from, you know, across all the local institutions that we have that have engineering capabilities, or is it business, or is it in data collection, because we do collect a lot of data in our projects. So we work with local talent, and of course we have policies integrated within our organization to ensure that people are well taken care of and that there's an opportunity for growth. We've learned that more and more young people, just like myself, when you know, I was 20 a few years ago, growth was a big thing for me. I wanted to be in an environment where I could innovate, create, and that's the kind of environment we look to provide for those who work for us so that they can stay with us, because transferring knowledge is important if it grows, you know, with that kind of team, but also hiring the right kind of people. So bringing in more interesting, motivated to keep the innovative culture going.
Thank you, Carol. And I think that also gives me room to bring Marie in, because innovation is always often mentioned in the same, let's say, phrase with research and development, and you're a researcher. And I mean, on the gender aspect in research, I think there are two sides to the coin. The one is really the research on gender aspects, which is also what you covered in your presentation. The other aspect is the people who do the research. And I think from my own experience, and maybe you share that as well, in big projects, not the least in European Horizon projects, organizations sometimes have a difficulty of bringing in female researchers. So my question to you is, how do we get more women to do research and also to keep them there? Because I think this is also then feeding the other part, which is doing research on gender of the energy transition, right? What is your take on this?
Thanks. Yeah, a really, really interesting question. So I think there are so many, potential hurdles, big and small, along the way. And I think that one of the really important things is to encourage girls from an early age to see that they can have, a career in STEM, a career in research. And there's been really interesting research from the World Bank that actually looked at textbooks that are used in schools, and how generally the pictures of the engineers are men and the pictures of the nurses are women. And this from a very early age, it kind of ingrains notions of what are women's roles and what are men's roles. So from a very early age, encouraging girls to see themselves in that kind of career path, I think, is really important. In terms of keeping women in research, I think, things that have been shown to be important, and I think in my own experience they are too. Networks are very important. Having mentors along the way is very important. And then also, I think from a policy perspective, having the policies in place that support women to engage throughout their working lives in things in terms of childcare, good education. And we really saw, with the onset of COVID, there was a much more severe decline in the research output of female research compared to male research. So what was happening at the household level was that women were taking on more of the care burden than men when schools and daycare centers closed. So again, I think some of that comes back to norms as well as policy. The policy needs to ensure that these facilities are provided, and when they fail, it needs to be upon both the burden of both spouses or everyone in the household to share the care burden equally.
Thank you, Marie. Again, I'm looking in the room and somebody's pointing me. Yes, I cannot see your name. Alice, I think. Please go ahead.
First of all, thank you so much. I came here for knowledge and inspiration, and I found it in an hour. So thank you for this. It's such an energy pill. My question, actually, I think it's for who wants to answer. Maybe one of you. I'm sure all of you will be suited to answer it. Marie mentioned that we have an energy poverty concept issue or lack of concept. And as a teacher and researcher, it's natural. So I can ask, do you think that we have a gender inequality and gender inequity, or also a justice transition lack of definition? I'm asking this because I'm Brazilian, but I work in Portugal. And in Portugal, as I launched this civic initiative, I have many people asking me, oh, what's the difference between gender equality and gender inequity? And I was like, sure, really? We're talking about policy problems and policy regulation, but we have a more deep issue that it's concerned to concepts. Maybe we have to get a step back and ask what they want to mean with that. And that's because actually I see all the gender issues connected to efficiency, like you mentioned Ursula saying that half of energy, half of talents is not good enough. And when you appeal to something like that with efficiency, it's more likely to get understood. But if you appeal to policy, then there's an issue right away. So you think it is a policy or a concept issue, or maybe both, or none? Thank you.
Yeah, I can take maybe a stab at the question on the concept and the challenges that the lack of concreteness causes. And I agree, it would be in a lot of ways it would be easier to tackle these issues, especially as from a research perspective, if you had something very concrete that you were looking at and this was your metric, and some countries, for example, Ireland, where I'm from, we have like an energy poverty threshold, whereas if a household spends more than 10% on their utility bills, more than 10% of their income on utility bills, they're in energy poverty. And I think this kind of highlights the challenge of having this definition, right? Because then you have it and then you can see all the holes that are with it, right? So you could have a household that has a very high income with very high energy consumption, and then they end up being defined as energy poor, which is obviously was not the aim of it. And I think that's maybe sometimes the challenge, that when you try and drill these things down, especially at an EU-wide level, you end up capturing people that you didn't intend to capture, and then also, maybe more importantly, leaving out those that should be included. So I think that's really the challenge of it. But also I fully empathize with the desire to be able to have more concrete definitions, and this can be frustrating for people.
I have just something to add into that. Also, when you look at context, those definitions will vary across the globe. So energy poverty can be defined very differently in other parts of the world, where some of those matrices, or some of the, when you're looking at it from a research perspective, might not actually apply. And I think we need a new view on how research-based policy is developed, even for the global South. And I think that it has to be informed by research that is targeted towards specific challenges in the global South, and within those contexts also other variations. So it is interesting that in the work that we do at ISAFIRI, when we're collecting data, we realize that things that we read in school completely do not matter when you go to the field, and all the ideas you had and the preconceptions you had really do not apply on the ground. Because as I assumed, maybe growing up a different generation and leaving to go to school and then coming back and doing this work, that more and more households will have a father figure taking care of the household. Therefore, of course, it would be either one income household or a two income household if the mother had we're finding more and more households having a single mother who is in charge of taking care of the children, and even the extended family, older parents, grandparents who are within that home. And these are things that, going into the field and being able to collect that information and then transfer that into, then how are the energy needs of this home being met, and how can we increase efficiency or reduce costs? So it's really transformed how we thought about livelihood and how we thought about, single parent homes in rural parts of Africa. So I think that, well, just like I said, it has to be contextually viable as well. Thank you.
Thank you. We have to come to an end, but James, I can take your question if it's brief. Yeah, okay.
Sure, by all means, only if there's time, so feel free to use it as you wish. Well, okay, first of all, quick congratulations on the event, both to the winners, the panelists, and also to my colleagues who put it on. I think it's a really lovely initiative, and it's a pleasure to be here and be a part of it. I was really surprised by Marie's presentation and the statistics on the proportion of households in energy poverty, particularly when broken down. And then the sort of follow-up question by Valerie on how effective we can be with this kind of aid and support, which was directed chiefly at Anna, but all three panelists mentioned it. And my question, or my statement, I guess, is maybe a little bit controversial in like the world of regulation and policy and research, but I'm interested in this idea of poverty alleviation in all regards and development work across the board. And there's a growing body of research that suggests that the most effective way to get people out of poverty of all kinds is to directly give them the financial resources. And the basis of that is essentially that people in acute situations fiscally know best how to spend the money. They know what they need. They know if they need food most acutely or heating supplies or what it is. They know their situation more acutely than a fieldwork researcher on the ground or an institution that's very far away perhaps. That's at least what the bodies of research suggest. And I wondered if the speakers with their various expertise on this issue could reflect on this as an approach versus what I think the Western world or the global North, however you want to frame it, has historically been more comfortable with in terms of poverty alleviation, whether it's energy poverty, which is essentially economic, right? This is tied directly to economics in Europe, or more linked to the global South.
Thank you, James. Anna, I will let you really briefly react because we have only 2 minutes. And then I don't know if you also still want to come in on this. Okay, so please be brief.
Okay, super briefly to the question that we have answered, and also it's linked to what James said. I think it's important that we at EU level really zoom in what's really happening at the community level. One of our main values is we're united in diversity, and we must recognize this diversity. There exists, because also by recognizing, we can again adapt our policies accordingly. And it also answers the question of equity versus equality, or the same. And I'm sorry, but I have to use this little image that stands in my head when there were 3 people who were trying to see the stage. And for me, equality is that and one is taller, one is shorter, and one is really tiny, and all of them get exactly the same level of support. And then the shortest one still doesn't see the stage. The tallest one, of course, sees. So that's why, for me, equity and fairness is that you make sure that all of them are on the same level. So that's why support has to, again, be adapted accordingly to their needs. And this also answers in terms of the financial resources. Maybe it's also advisory support. Maybe it's not really about the money, but also about supporting, changing the mindset. Maybe it's about capacity building. Maybe it's about training, and also providing information about different resources and what to do. So, and especially in energy sector, would we always emphasize this energy efficiency first? And that's very often, I would like to also keep this in mind. So that's all within 2 minutes. Thank you very much.
Yes, less. I wanted to respond to the second question. So I think that for poverty, energy poverty alleviation, and also what you referred to when you were saying that financial support would be maybe the most viable way. I think that if you look at it in short term and long term, especially for communities, and I speak, maybe for the continent that I serve, or where I've worked for most of my life, is that financial support may be a short-term solution to some of those challenges. When you're looking at it more long-term and in a more sustainable way, then what Anna said, capacity building, being able to find business models that work within these communities, that are built to work within these communities, because there's so many energy projects that are now quiet. Nobody looks at them, nobody works, nobody benefits from them. They were built mini grids and just sit there. And because the business model was not integrating the community within it. And these are projects that could have gone for years and generations to support people if there was a operation and maintenance capacity within the community. So they would take ownership of the project in maintenance and in capacity building as well, where we do knowledge dissemination over a period of years. So I think that can be more empowering and more impactful and more sustainable over a long period of time. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think we have come to an end, and the good news is there is a cocktail at the end. So all this discussion can go on in the cocktail hour, but until then, I will hand over to Ilaria. Thank you to the speakers.
Indeed, thank you very much to all the speakers, to all the speakers in the previous session. I think we had already great insights into this debate. So thank you very much also to Valerie for the excellent moderation. We are now starting a session called Shedding Lights on Women, which is a little bit playing with words, because as Leonardo also mentioned at the beginning, you by now know that the Florence School of Regulation has this important project, Lights on Women, since 2017. And what are the aims? Actually, the Lights on Women initiative really aims at championing women's accomplishments and also wants to change the energy sector from the inside. We know that the energy sector is one of the sectors, not the only one, but one of the sectors where there's still a significant gap between women and men at different level. And so with our contribution, we really want to change this the reality with the support of a growing community of women. Of course, in order to accomplish this mission, we need instruments. And over the years, the project has given itself a number of instruments that are proving quite useful. We have scholarships dedicated to women. We have a number of other initiatives. We have a blog where we feature female authors and so on and so forth. So you can find, of course, all this information on our website. It's not today's scope to talk in details about the Lights on Women, but of course, we're all here and happy to provide you with any information if you have any question about it. One of the instruments of the Lights on Women, actually the most recent one, because it was launched only in December last year, is the Energy Base. The Energy Base is a database which is dedicated to expert women who are expert in the energy, sustainability, and climate sectors. And in line with the Lights on Women project, really wants to bring these women, this talent to the light and offer them opportunities for career advancement, for visibility opportunities, and also wants to provide really a safe place, if you want to, for networking and a place where they can be seen and heard and they can speak. So more to come, but in this session, we are going to have an update on the Energy Base, what we have achieved so far. We know that we are at the beginning, but we are very optimistic. We will hear from my colleague Elena Bondesand, where we are with the project, and afterwards we are going to have a speech from Elisa Rondella of Edison, who Edison, together with Landwärme, is one of the supporting companies, one of the donors who have always believed since the beginning in this project. So thank you very much for that, Elena.
Thank you, Ilaria. So as Ilaria already mentioned, I will give a brief overview of the Energy Base, just a short mention on its functionalities and the achievement as of today. So first of all, as many of you already know, and as Ilaria already mentioned, the Energy Base is a database for professionals in the energy, climate and sustainability sectors. And it's a database where companies and institutions can find the candidates for their opportunities. We also say that it's a multi-side matchmaking platform, in fact, where the demand for female talents can more easily meet the supply. The users, in fact, of the Energy Base, so are both the female experts that can open a profile, and now I will show you an example. And then on the other side, there are also the institution and the companies who wish to diversify their talent pool. So first of all, for those of you who haven't accessed it yet, the Energy Base can be accessed from the Lights on Women website. So the female professionals, as I mentioned, can open a profile on the Energy Base, and they can provide information on their work experience, educations, and the projects they're currently managing or following. Companies and institutions on their side can browse through this profile, and they look, for instance, for a specific area of expertise, job title, company, or maybe a sector, for instance. And once they find the candidate that fits their requirement, as you can see here, they can directly contact them and get in touch with them to offer an opportunity, such as, for instance, a job vacancy, or maybe the participation in a panel debate. And at the same time, as Ilaria was mentioning, another important part of the Energy Base is the possibility to network with the other experts on the Energy Base, and they can do so, in fact, messaging the other profile. And at the same time, since we want women to promote other women as well, there is the possibility for them to recommend other female professionals that they know and that they know they work. Since the launch of the energy base, as Ilaria was mentioning, that was mid-December 2022, the Lights on Women website has recorded 23,000 page views and more than 6,000 sessions from more than 120 countries. Which means that the users of the energy base visited more than one page and more than one section of the website. So which means they were engaged in the content that we were offering. In addition, 1,400 professionals decided to subscribe to the newsletter to remain up to date with the project and the opportunities that we're offering. Now looking more in details at the profiles that we have on the energy base, we had more than 700 registered users, and among them, 260 profiles are now completed and visible, which means that the users completed more than 50% of their profile. So which means 37% of them actually completed more than 50% of their profile. So providing detailed information about their experience and their education. Out of these 260, about more than 1/3 actually, is now a verified profile, which means that they did a step further and they uploaded even a certificate of education, or they were recommended by other energy users on the energy base. And they provided the link to an official staff page where we can actually see that they were employed in a company and the role that they have in that company. But now let's have a look at who are the experts on the energy base as of today, at least. So they come from more than 68 countries. Most of them are between 26 and 35 years old and 36 and 45 years old. And most of them are employed in the private sector, as we can see, 27%, academia and research field, 18%, civil societies such as NGOs and think tanks for 10%, but we also have experts and representatives from TSO, DSOs, government, public administration, consultancies, international organizations, regulator, trade association, and the press. On this occasion, it is worth mentioning that, as Ilaria was already saying before, that together with the energy base and a dedicated blog section where we publish a contribution from female experts, we also have a dedicated section for the opportunities. In this section, besides the opportunities from the FSR, we also have partners and third parties that can ask us, in fact, to publish their opportunities, such as awards, call for instructors, call for papers or tenders, job vacancies, panel and webinars, press inquiries, and scholarship and mentorship programs. This means that from the side of the companies and institutions, they can both ask us to publish their own call and opportunities, and we will publish them here. But at the same time, as I already mentioned, they can also navigate through the different profile on their own. We are currently working on some next developments for the platform. We would like, in fact, to implement an automatic matching system between the talents that we have on the energy base and these relevant opportunities from companies and third parties. And in addition, we would like to give the possibility to partners and selected third-party institutions to directly post this possibility for career advancement on our website. So maybe I would just conclude inviting all the female experts who are here and who have not registered yet to register. As you will see, more opportunities will come up. And on the other side, so I would also invite companies and institutions that are interested in finding experts and talents in the energy, climate, and sustainability sectors to reach out to us, and so that we can publish the opportunities and different calls on our website. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elena. Very, very helpful and clear. Elisa, you have the floor.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting Edison in this very inspiring event. As Ilaria said before, Edison has been involved since the beginning in this project, and our support to this project came naturally because we consider this a very pragmatic instrument and very synergic to what Edison has done so far with the goal to promoting gender inclusion. So let me, in brief, explain you why, giving you some concrete example of what we are developing in Edison. First of all, inclusion and diversity became part of Edison sustainability goals in 2018. Thanks to the activity done by the Transformation Team project, that was a cross-divisional project promoted by the Executive Committee, with the goal to promote the sustainability energy transition across the company corporate culture. And starting from there, many actions have been put in place. First of all, a dashboard has been created with gender and age metrics, with the idea that in order to improve things, first of all, things must be accountable. So basically, you have to measure them. In addition, strategic measures have been put in place in order to try to promote managerial positions. For example, ensuring that men and women applied to executive levels are represented proportionally according to middle management positions. But on top of this, many programs have been launched, both internally in Edison and external. For example, one of the most, let's say, interesting one, at least for me, because I took part of it, is the mentoring program. So basically, this program has been launched across 4 editions, yes, so far, involving more than 100 colleagues. And mentorship community has been created in order to keep the activities and the discussions on these topics ongoing. But then also the Inspiring Ambassador program is a program I think very, very interesting for this purpose. Basically, Edison colleagues, both men and women, went to school, especially to secondary school, in order to explain the activities and the jobs in the energy field, with the main goal to encourage young girls to embrace the STEAM activities. But I mentioned before that we also take part to initiatives that are not created in Edison, but are more international, like Deploy Your Talents, that is similar to Inspiring Ambassador, but is developed by CSR Europe. And last year, 18 companies took part in these initiatives that once again, basically allow people involved in the energy sector to get in touch with young female in high and secondary school in order to promote the STEAM activities, and with the idea to let them aware of the fact that STEAM activities and STEAM disciplines can make the difference once you are looking for the job in your future. And last but not let's say less interesting program is the Hack Her program. Hack Her is a program launched by Bridge the Gap, and this is a very practical initiative. Basically, young girls in secondary school are allowed to experience a very practical activity like the creation of an app. So basically there are coaches and supervisors helping them in promoting these activities that is of course very technical and of course with a lot of discussion that then take place accordingly. And well, I think that at the end comes clear that for us, this instrument is very important. I think the potential that energy base has not been explored totally. So we are very, let's say, curious to see how can we take advantage of this instrument. But yeah, I would say that it's a job that we will develop together, and so very happy to take part of this initiative. Once again, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Elisa. Thanks for your support. It's very important for us, as we know. So I think we can now move to the session. We have built enough suspense, I think. So I'm going to. It's a coincidence, I promise, that we have this room for this event, but since we have a stage, we couldn't, we had to take advantage and for an award ceremony. So see, I'm waiting. Okay. Good. And it works, right? Yes. From here. Yeah. Up, up, up. Back. No, to the beginning. Yes. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so what are the LUCE Awards? The LUCE Awards, we talked about it already, but the LUCE Awards really for us mean further the just transitions gender mainstream objectives, and at the same time the contributions that that women of all ages have achieved. So by setting up these awards, we really wanted to open to the wider community of experts, women experts in energy, climate and sustainability, and provide them with a chance to really emerge. So, of course, when we started discussing about this idea, we were extremely supportive, extremely excited. And together with Landwärme, together with Gabor in particular, we decided to create two categories, recognizing the outstanding contribution indeed of women in the sectors. And the two categories are emerging talent and legacy women. The emerging talent is really for up and coming female academics, as you can see, but also entrepreneurs, really a wide range of categories, women who are young leaders of the civil society and who are working to advance the green transition worldwide. The legacy women category addresses, let's say, more senior professionals, senior level, who have already given evidence of, their work in advancing the energy, climate, and sustainability sectors. So, first of all, it's important to remember that this doesn't work. Can you move it? Thanks. Okay, good. So I can get rid of this. Fantastic. Can you move? Thanks. In the process to select the winners, we were very happy to have the support of an evaluation committee. So we set up a committee of experts, and here you can see represented the logos of the institutions and companies that where they come from: SEER, the Council of Energy Regulators, Edison, Landwärme, the European Network for Young Experts in Energy, the European Commission, Florence School, of course, and the European University Institute, and the International Energy Agency. And actually for those who have participated, with the help of Landwärme, we have prepared also some little awards, some trophies that will be distributed later. Otherwise, we are running a little bit short of time. But I want to, going forward, please. Specify what was the process for both selecting the emerging talent and the legacy women. The two processes differ slightly. So for the emerging talent, it was self-application. So we opened up really widely the possibility to everyone who had the requirements to compete in this process to self-apply after registration in our Lights on Women platform. We asked applicants to describe the project that they were working on, and I would think that would comply, and also a roadmap. There was no age or geographical limitations in this. Everybody could really apply. And the projects that we really we were hoping to see were projects in the academic sector, publications, or volunteering initiative, anything really which could be a tangible evidence of the work done. And in this project, of course, the applicant would have to have a relevant position. So being the leader or shouldering at least a good portion of the work. The winner, we're now going to announce it. The winner will be awarded a trophy, a certificate, and a free seat at one of the FSR community course, of course, together with the possibility of being here with us today. So the winner is Onyene Adene Zelu. Please join me here. Thank you. Thank you for being with us today. We know also that your travel was a bit bumpy, so thank you so much for being with us today. And we would like to give you the opportunity for a brief speech, please.
Thank you very much. I started my journey at 10 p.m. I got my visa yesterday and I started my journey at 10 p.m. So I haven't slept. So in case I'm not very coherent, please bear with me. So in 2021, I left a consulting firm and I made what I think is one of the most remarkable career decisions I've made to go and work in the energy poverty space. Nigeria, according to the World Bank, has 92 million people without energy access. And it was very interesting to hear. I was trying to define, what energy poverty is. I mean, 92 million people completely off the grid, no infrastructure. And so I started working with Engie Energy Access. We do solar home systems and mini grids for completely unserved communities in Africa. We're operational in 9 African countries. And interestingly, I was recruited as one. I had only one other person in my team. And we had the task of raising the finance, building the mini grids, and operating them in unserved communities in Africa. In Nigeria specifically, I was leading the Nigerian team. And so it was a very daunting task. We built our first mini grid. I remember the day we commissioned it, I was on my laptop, I was configuring the meters. I'm an engineer by training. So I was boots on the ground, trying to make sure everything worked, and we pushed it through. And then subsequently, my role required that we go raise finance. Thankfully, we found a partner, Cross Boundary Energy Access. And with them, they were willing to finance and own the mini grids while we built and operated it. And through a 15-month negotiation, we were able to sign what today is the biggest project finance portfolio in Africa for mini grids, $60 million USD deal to electrify 150,000 people in Nigeria. That again was, I led the deal team from the Nigerian side and from the energy side. It was a very daunting task. It was the first time it was being done. We didn't have the experience, and then coordinating, all the teams, the legal teams, the financial teams, making sure the financial model was working, making sure the legal drafting was working. We did all of that, and we signed the deal in September last year, and we're already in the process of rolling out. The plan is to connect about 20,000 people within the next 18 months, and still within the portfolio. We'll do it in batches, for the next 5 years. That has been my story so far. It's been remarkable. One of the things that makes me continue is when you go to the village, right? You go to the village today, it's nothing, right? They're pointing the land for you. And then you go back 12, 18 months after, and you've built your power plant, you've connected the communities, and you look, there's a welder, he's welding things for the village. You look, there's a rice mill, it's a big farm that is milling rice. Yeah. You look again, the healthcare center, there's power there, there's a fridge there, and they can refrigerate their vaccines and all of that. It's that life-changing impact that it has on the communities, and then having the opportunity to do it over and over and over again. I keep saying that no matter how big the deal we have signed is, we've not scratched the surface. If 92 million people are unelectrified in Nigeria, and the deal we signed is just for 150,000, it's less than 1%. So there's a lot more work to be done. And we're here trying to do the work. So thank you very much to Lights on Women. Thank you very much to the LUCE Awards and all the sponsors. It's very, it gives that elated feeling to have your work be celebrated. But beyond that is also to show to as many women, especially in Africa, wherever we are, breaking the limits, trying to do the work that we do, that just to encourage everyone to continue doing it, continue pushing the boundaries, continue making the space, and also to say, hold the door for the next woman to walk through the same doors that you've walked through. Thank you very much.
And a certificate as well. There you go. I don't know if we can make a picture. Congratulations. Congratulations again. Thank you. Good. So we go to the next category. Many thanks once again. Okay. Right. So the next category is the legacy women. And again, here the process was a bit different. Here we asked the evaluation committee to come up with some names. So to nominate up to 2 women who would fit the criteria that were previously set for this category. Again, there was no age or geographical limit. We only advised to suggest nominees who had at least 15 years of experience, being the legacy award legacy category. And in terms of selection criteria, legacy, advocacy, and timeliness of action were the main criteria. So established female professionals, so who had already brought some tangible results of their work, who had a track record of impactful projects, or had contributed to dissemination, to promotion of gender equality, and had contributed to the advancement of energy and climate goals, and also women who are still active in their roles. So we came up with a short list of 11 fantastic senior female professionals. which were then, let's say, these 11 profiles were put on votes via our Lights on Women platform. So the winner was simply selected by, having received the highest number of votes. The winner will be awarded again a trophy, a certificate, and a free seat in a high-level FSR executive training. Slide, please. So these are, just for completeness, the shortlisted women. I actually would like to ask you to give a big applause to each and all of them, because the competition was very, very tight. And they some of them are, are following us right now from remote. Unfortunately, they couldn't all be here today. So a big thank you for each of them, and also for accepting to become our ambassadors of the Lights on Women project. So now the winner. The winner is the commissioner of the Italian Independent Regulatory Authority for Energy, Networks and Environment, so ARERA, chair of the Board of Regulators of the European Agency for the Cooperation of Energy Regulators, ACER, and the delegate at the Council of European Energy Regulators. She was also director of the Bocconi University Research Center on Energy and Environment, IEFE, and she is actually a member of the Advisory Council Executive Committee of the Electric Power Research Institute and associate researcher of the Cambridge Energy Policy Research Group. Yes, you are. I have proofs. So with a majority of 43 out of 228 votes received through our platform, the winner of the first edition of the LUCE Legacy Women is Clara Poletti. Congratulations.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you to everybody, and thank you to the organizers and the promoters. It's a real emotion, I must say. I mean, a prize to me, a real emotion. Certainly, I'm senior. My son and my daughter told me that I'm old, and anyway, yes, just a few words on my side, and I have to say that I'm a pink quota, and I'm sure you are not yet. I'm a pink quota. I feel a bit like a panda. I'm part of a protected category, a category that needs protection. This is what I'm told. And this is not a joke, because in Italy, actually, we have quotas for Independent Energy Authority as well for the board. So I'm the pink quota in our board. And but I have not always been a pink quota. And actually, I grown up feeling that being a woman would never make a difference, that it was the same, and I had the same opportunities. And for a long time, that was the case for me. And actually, I had a wonderful family, a mother that really was very supportive, wonderful colleagues and friends. And let me just mention one episode. We were working together at the starting of the Italian Regulatory Authority. We were a team, a very young team. And guess who was my boss? It was Alberto Potocnik, that today is Deputy Director of the Florence School of Regulation. And we were drafting the first tariff reform for Italy, the first one, really important. And I had, at that time, I just had my second son. And I was at home because I couldn't work. I was at home looking after my son. And my team, they all came to my house. They took the train because I don't live in Milan. So they took the train. They all came to me. And in order for us to be able to work together to the reform. And for a few hours, we were there and I looked after my son. And I was so happy. But was the way it was at that time. So there was no difference, really. There was no difference. And so for a long time, when in my career, when people ask me, how is it like to be a woman in a male-driven sector, I would reply, you know, I've been lucky. I've been lucky. I had a mother that worked full time and raised myself and my brothers, teaching us that we were all equal. You know, my brother became an engineer and became an economist, and the other one a doctor. So we were all equal. We had all the same opportunities. I have great colleagues, as you know already. But I was wrong. Now I realize that I was wrong. I've not been lucky. And saying that I was lucky would be unfair to my mother, to my friends, and to all the women that are working to have a role. So I was not lucky. I am what I am because other people had me to be here, because I worked myself, I studied a lot. And so I decided, I took a commitment. I'm no longer going to say that I was lucky. It's not easy because sometimes I still think that I was lucky, but this is my commitment. So you can ask yourself, how did it happen that she became a pink quota? That was later on in my career. When growing in the positions, I started competing for powerful positions. And then it's where the barrier comes. That's where the number of women goes down. So at the beginning, young women, young professional, you find a lot of them, but then going up for different reasons, they just decrease. And when you try to get to the top, there is very difficult. That the fight becomes very hard. So there is where we do not have to give up. So don't give up. Together we can do it. It's not a matter of being you at the top. It's a matter of being there together. Again, as a team, I got where I am because I had a team of people, friends and people, colleagues working with me. And I think you say legacy women. What is my legacy? Legacy to me is the relationship and the network that I built, because really I think cooperation and trust is the only way forward. Of course, you need competencies, but we all have that. We are all competent women, and that's just a prerequisite. But then you need really to be able to relate to people, work with them, be generous with your women colleagues, but with the men as well. Be generous with everybody and show that women can do it and can do it fine.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And there you go. Picture. Thank you so much. This was really very, very inspirational. So here it ends. I mean, our workshop today. I would really like to, but not without some big thank yous to all the ones who actually contributed to the success of this event. We have already reminded Edison and Landwärme for the great opportunities that they are giving to the success of Lights on Women. Many thanks to the winners, obviously, for being here, for having also challenged themselves in a competition. So this is not something we should take for granted. To all of you for being here today, but now I would really like to use this opportunity, with the excuse of the group picture, I would like to call on stage all my colleagues who actually contributed to the organization of this event, and in general would like to thank all of them for the big contribution that they provide with their daily work to the project, this Lights on Women project of the Florence School of Regulation. I would go in random order as I see them. Anna Sobchak, Valerie Reif, please come on stage. We have to make a group picture. Elena Bondesan, Leo, please. It's also for men. It's also thanks to men that this project is successful. Elena Iorio, Daniela Bernardo, Christine Leon, Marzia Sesini, and also, of course, unfortunately, they cannot come, I'm afraid, Chiara Canestrini and Antonio Pistilli, please come all on stage. And we will, Sofia, I see you, please. This will be a collective FSR. We don't have so many FSR pictures, really, so why not? And also, James, please. If I forgot, I'm a bit blind, so okay, that's it. And we don't have to forget our colleagues Dražen and Gianluca, who cannot come because they are taking the picture. But of course, they are also very important for the success of the project. Thank you all. Great. Now. As always. Another one, yes. Yes. Okay. Somebody have a show. Especially for the people connected. Sorry. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. And stop. I think we will do the picture now, the group picture. Okay, so full group picture, but maybe we can, yes. Stage. Sì, per favore. Yes. So I think, please. I think we can now stop the connection with our online participants. Thank you very much to all for attending.